article in Cocktail Chatter that I ask you to have a look at if you're interested and you want to know what I'm talking about here. The article is called Risks Seen in Cholesterol Drug Use in Healthy People. There was a medication that was shown to reduce blood cholesterol in people. It also increased risk of type 2 diabetes. What was interesting was this one doctor who was interviewed and said, we found a 55% reduction in heart attacks, a 48% reduction in stroke, 45% reduction in angioplasty bypass surgery, which we'll talk about when we get to heart disease. He continues to say, I felt I had one shot at a controversial hypothesis and it worked really well. Look at these huge numbers, 55, 45, 48. Sounds enormous. Relative risk or absolute risk? Of course, it was relative risk. Relative risk always is the larger number. But let's look at the absolute risk. Let's look at those actual numbers. The rate of heart attacks, for example, was 0.37% or 68 patients out of 8,901. This was what occurred in the control group, the group that took the sugar pill. Among the experimental group, the folks that took Crestor, it was 0.17 or 31 patients. The difference between the control group and the experimental group was 68 to 31, and that is truly a 55% reduction in relative risk. In absolute terms, it was 37 out of 8,901 people, or 2 out of 1,000 people who experienced a heart attack. Again, do you want to take a medication for the rest of your life based on those numbers? This is something you have to decide. If you have a strong family history of heart disease, then maybe it's something that you want to do. What I'm not addressing here is the diabetes risk. These are things you need to know when you're making decisions about taking a medication for the rest of your life. Again, assuming that you have insurance and support. So it's the absolute number that you need to know to make your decision, not the relative number. So yes, 55% is truly statistically significant. But the question is it clinically relevant? When you're judging health information, you want to know, is it from a credible book, a peer-reviewed journal, a professional organization, or a magazine, a newspaper, an advertisement, or a news story, an opinion piece? Are the quotes in the article from credible, reliable, knowledgeable people, or are they testimonials? Remember, testimonials are not based on research. The plural of anecdote is not data, it's anecdotes. Stories are great, but that's all they are stories. Please keep that in mind. Please have a look at this for suggestions on how to tell if a website's reliable. On the right are, on the left are some sites that I use. And if you go to these sites and have any questions, please ask me, because I'm showing you my bias. I find these sites to be very credible. If you have questions about them and we find out that I'm wrong, I'll change my mind, because that's how science works. As information comes in, we change our hypothesis, we learn new information. Find me a site, let's talk about it, and help me change my mind. Critical thinking is an objective evaluation of information. Remember to consider the source. Let credible scientific evidence, not opinions or hearsay, do the convincing. Question the credentials and motives of the person presenting the information. Evaluate the content. Separate facts from opinions and make your decisions based on facts, not fear. Be able to distinguish between cause and correlation. And we'll talk more about this in class. I will show you some wonderful correlations between things that have no relationship to causation. Stay tuned. Of course, a meme, because why not? I'll give you a second to look at it. when you see the entire body of peer-reviewed scientific evidence going along the highway, please don't take a turn off to a single fringe study or Netflix. I call them shockumentaries. They're very exciting. They have great optics because, let's face it, peer-reviewed scientific literature needs a PR team. And of course, there's no cure for our addiction to medical hype. That's why I'm offering this class. That may be why you're taking it. Let's have a look at Dr. Charjani and his amazing cure for cancer. I also have a bias for the McGill Office for Science and Society. Can you tell? A few more things before we finish this topic. A simple guide for determining whether or not you should fact check a source or claim. Well, I'll let you have a look at it. I think you know. You should be able to tell. So remember, correlation doesn't prove causation. Remember the importance of absolute versus relative risk. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. Remember the phrase statistically significant, but not clinically relevant. And of course, it's the dose that makes the poison. We'll get to that, I promise. Now, this video that we're going to watch that I want you to watch for the second day of class is something that I made for my nutrition class, but it talks about the scientific method. It's about potato chips, what's not to like. And I want to ask you to think about where you think the phrase correlation doesn't prove causation fits into this video. What is the correlation? What is thought to be the causation upon which this study was based? All right, folks, see you later.